Okay, well, let's get going. I'm sure other people will join along the way. We're recording this as well, so if your colleagues couldn't attend or anyone you know of would like to see this, please feel free to pass them the recording. We'll send that to you afterward, and we will get going. Super fun. We're spanning continents today. We got folks in Europe, UK, South America, US. So thank you all for joining. And let's get going. So today we're going to be talking about automating prefab wall panel design and using Kope to do so. So Kope is a configurator platform that helps you automatically configure your prefabricated systems into any project. And what we can do with that is optimize your designs, reduce the waste of prefab systems, what gets cut, what gets scrapped, and also make the process of doing doing takeoffs for projects and quotes for process faster. And this is more from the manufacturer perspective. How do the manufacturers have a big problem of trying to figure out what their systems will cost for every project that comes in the door, so we can speed up that quoting process. For those of you who come from more of a consulting, architecture, development, design build type background, you may not be manufacturing these systems, and we'll talk a bit about how Kope can help you with manufacturers you do use for wall panel systems. Structural insulated panels, framed wall panels of wood or steel, precast concrete, those sorts of wall panel systems, and help you configure your projects for them as well. So let's dive into it. And then please do put questions in the chat. We can stop midstream and answer them, or we can answer them at the end. But as interactive as you all want to make this, we can make this. So Kope is for two main users. So one is for the manufacturers of offsite systems. So wall panel factories, and again, of also all different types, from precast concrete to frame systems to structural panels of various sorts. So, and Kope goal is to help you all configure, quote, sell, and manufacture more panels that are going through your shop. We have seen in the industry a challenge with sales pipeline and offsite factory production. So we want to help you all keep your factories busy and help you continue to grow as businesses. And then the second user of Kope is, again, the specifier, the design builder, the architect, the developer, folks who are looking to discover offsite products and systems and then configure them for your projects. So the first thing we'll talk about is Kope's Configurator. This is something new for offsite construction. Everybody at Kope, we're all passionate believers in offsite construction. We've all lived this traditional design and construction process from various angles, and we all have sort of seen the light in terms of that offsite is the future. And so our contribution to helping the offsite industry is, number one, to help consolidate a database of all of the offsite suppliers. We call that Kope Market. I'll get into that in a bit. And then also make it easier to specify and design in prefabricated systems into projects. That has been a huge challenge and pain point in the industry. So our product configurator can help you do that. And what it does, I'll get into the details of how it works, but essentially it decreases your estimating costs. We can reduce your design time for early takeoffs, estimates, and quotes by 90%. We can use our platform to actually automate lots of design solutioning. So we can optimize your layouts based on various criteria for different projects. So we can help you not only configure your system quickly, but then also optimize around various points that might be important for you. In some cases, that's producing more of the same panel type. We can optimize for that. In some cases, it's producing the fewest number of panels. In some cases, it's producing smaller panels that are sort of more manual and less crane operated in terms of job site install. So lots of different solution optionality that we allow you to do, and help you standardize your offering as well. So your different teams of estimators and quoters, people putting together quote, can do these and configure these systems differently, so we can help you standardize as a business on sort of your best practices. And then the goal is, again, for you to be able to quote more projects and win more projects. So how does it work? We start on the left here. Kope loads any project into our system. That includes 2D projects or 3D projects. And then Kope explores where your system could go. So if you're producing an external structural insulated panel system and a SIPS roof, we'll find where the external walls are. We'll find where the roofs are, and then we'll configure your system into it and panelize into it. If you're a framed wall panel manufacturer, we'll do the same thing, external walls, internal walls, load-bearing, non-bearing. We'll pick those system types in the model, and then we'll configure your various systems accordingly. And at that point, Cope is optimizing your design layout, your prefab layout, based on your own design and manufacturing criteria. So you've got design limitations, design restrictions, your sort of DFMA process that you bake in to projects. Cope learns the way that you do projects, and then we just bake in the same logic into our algorithm. And then additionally lets you optimize on top of that. What you get out of Cope is, in this case, wall panels is the focus of this webinar. You get your wall panels configured. You get 3D model content for all those wall panels. Drawing sets, component drawings, layout drawings, elevations, isometrics. You get the actual IFC content back as 3D model content that you can take back to the project model. And you get all that raw data in whatever format you want. Typically Excel is what people like for their quoting process, but panel counts, panel types, panel areas, you can have all that raw data. And then if you do end up winning projects, then Cope, you can start with that starting point in Cope. You can take, again, those 3D models and other aspects of the Cope output and carry that forward into your fabrication level detailing and modeling. So here's how it works. So on the left, we start with the project input. Want to emphasize here, the projects that we require, the 3D model inputs that we require are super basic. Think like LOD 100 models. All we need is wall geometry and opening locations, roof geometry, and then we can configure on top of that. So, and when we can actually convert 2D to 3D. So a lot of industries, a lot of spaces, especially more like single family home focused manufacturers of wall panels, they're getting projects that are generally 2D. And so we've got a 2D to 3D conversion service that we offer as well to get the models to super basic 3D, and then you can take it from there in Cope and apply. In this case, we're showing two different systems here that we've applied to this custom home. So you can see that Cope sort of finds the external walls in this case, and then configures accordingly based on different prefab and offsite systems. So some offsite systems are very flexible, very configurable, essentially infinitely configurable, like a traditional framed wall panel. And other systems are very fixed. And whether you vary the width of your fixed panels, or whether you have a standard set of panels and you build custom panels, there are lots of methods to the wall panelization, and Cope can work with all of those different types of system logic to configure projects. And then the output on the right is, how many panels did you place? Your metrics around standard panels, custom panels, non-buildable panels, the various criteria that you'd be interested in while you're configuring a building. We can surface any metric as you're configuring. A couple of the use cases. This is a floor panels example, but just so you get a sense of scale, this is a precast concrete flooring system. We're also working with companies on precast walls at the moment, and we can configure, again, these floor plates started on the left as just Revit structural floor plates with columns, and Cope senses the columns and gets the floor geometry and then actually configures the system accordingly. And then same thing, you get high-level metrics on what was placed. So it makes the configuring drop from days to minutes. Here's an example of a fixed width wall panel. This is a company in Europe and in the UK, and they have these fixed width panels you can see on the right over here. Closed cold form wall panels, and their metric for evaluating a project is how standardized is it based on their system. So how many custom panels as a percentage of a project will they have? And if it's over a certain percentage, like 90%, they'll take the job and they'll develop a few custom panels to fill in the gaps, while the 90% of the project would be their standard panels. And so this was taking them a week or two of man hours to configure a project like this, just to know whether or not they should quote it or not. And in Cope, this happens in seconds. And then just sort of taking this one step further, sort of multi-systems, you think of like volumetric modular, you're looking at lots of multi-trade systems, framing, boarding, insulation, siding, all the types of materials that would go into your various wall systems. Cope can configure many of these systems, and we've worked with companies like this one to configure their volumetric modular systems as well. So that's a bit of intro on the configurator, and I'll show you more of a demo in just a minute. But quick sidestep here to Cope's marketplace. Think of this as the yellow pages for offsite construction. So we want to consolidate the industry, and we've got pages for North America, for the UK and Europe, and also for South America. And the idea is we want this to be a comprehensive database of all offsite products and all offsite manufacturers. So some of you on this call have your pages already listed, and you can claim those pages, update your products, and let people discover you through Cope Market. Eventually, what this becomes, just you guys are probably already seeing it, is a place where architects, developers, design builders, people who want to know about offsite systems can come to Cope Market, discover the types of offsite products that are available in the industry, and then quickly configure and test and compare various traditional versus offsite systems with Cope. So full transparency, not there yet, but that's where we're going in probably the next year, is to be able to have this sort of specifier-based configurator comparison tool that leverages offsite products into this sort of comprehensive ecosystem. And the way that looks is essentially we've got this hub of suppliers and products, and those flow into product configurator. And so being able to test multiple product types side by side, directly get quotes, make it easier for you all as manufacturers, those of you who are manufacturers, to receive quotes, configure your projects, and then turn around, a price to your clients is important to us. Okay, so quick case study here. And again, please, if you have questions, put them into the chat. We'll answer those at the end, and have a Q&A too. So here's how Cope works. This is a single-family home, custom single-family home, and this is going to be applying a structural insulated panel roof system as well as a wall system. Same process for framed panels, same process for precast concrete, same process for any prefab system. So the idea is start with a super basic 3D model, and then Cope goes and finds the external walls in this case, finds the roof panels, and then it actually lays out the system based on your design rules, or in this case, the SIPS manufacturer's design rules. And this process would take anywhere from a few hours to a day for someone at a SIPS factory to manually lay out, depending on the level of detail that companies go to in their quotes. And you can see that happen in seconds. And you're also getting over here on the right sort of high-level dashboards of, for these roof panels, how many roof panels did we place? How many are what we call simple cut versus complex? Panel surface area, panel types. And then similarly with the wall metrics down here, total surface area, total panels, how many types, how many are non-buildable. And these metrics over here, part of our process is configuring this to each manufacturer independently. So whatever metrics are important, we surface. And so let me go to the next video here. So the next piece of this is to dive into sort of the configuration optionality that's possible. So for each of these products, we can configure. So in this case, I'm going to pause it here. You can configure what are your sort of starting panel sizes? What are your maximum panel sizes, minimum panel sizes? If you have the ability to build something that's 20 feet wide and 8 feet tall, or 20 feet tall and 8 feet wide, you can set those sorts of options in Cope. So we're using the right sort of basic panel size and dimensions that work for your design and manufacturing process. And then you can configure things like strategies, we call them, which are how do the panels actually get laid out and broken? Do you start left to right? Do you start top to bottom? If you have a wall opening, do you start there? When you get to a window or door, do you stop the panel and have a lintel and sill? Or do you have a larger panel and punch an opening and frame around it? Those sorts of things get baked into these strategies. So what companies will do is they'll set their company defaults, and then they'll give their teams the options to go back and reconfigure project by project if they need to. So what you'll notice when this reapplies, you'll see these wall panels on the left here is broken into lots of small panels. When we reconfigure this, you're going to see a totally different panel layout here because we said you can use a larger panel in Cope. The next piece to highlight here is now you've got your base configuration set up. Now you might want to go and optimize it. So if you wanted to go look around optimizing these wall panels based on sort of fewest of the same panel count or fewest panel types in general, or fewest panels, largest panels, we'll go through, and I'm going to pause it right here. And so what we're doing here is this is our optimizing engine. So you can pick all the variables you want to optimize around. In this case, we picked widths. And then you can go find the objectives that you want Cope to go seek for the best solution for. So fewest panels, fewest panel types, and down here, most simple cut panels. And when Cope goes and optimizes, it's going to run through lots of design iterations, and it's going to find lots of solutions, and it's going to surface those results as, best fit, worst fit for each of the different metrics you just picked as options. So, this is a new layout. Every time we run this, it's a different panel layout based on the configurations. You can save those configurations. You can compare those configurations. And so this allows you the ability to go in here, find, the fewest panels placed and the most simple panels. And in this case, option 7 has, the smallest number of panels. And so here's that option, that optimized layout in Cope. And so what we see a lot of companies doing is taking what would have been one configuration that they would do manually over the course of a few hours or a day. And instead, we allow them to do this sort of optioneering very quickly. And they can actually generate multiple system layouts and essentially multiple quotes for the same effort. So if their builder wants X and you think Y is better, you can provide them 2 quotes and sort of let them pick. So it gives you a lot of power in terms of quoting to make the system work and make your quote more compelling. And then finally, let's get into some of the output. So Cope will generate for each of these design iterations that you run. And again, you can save the ones you like, and you can directly compare the ones you like. We'll actually give you all this model content. We'll give you all this data as output. So you can take what we call deliverables. And right now, this is how you print to Excel. You can push all the data to Excel. And we also generate shop drawings, component drawings, or sorry, not shop drawings, but component drawings, layout drawings, elevations, isometrics, which you'll see in our drawing packs that we produce. And again, not shop drawings, I misspoke, but the raw data that would go into your quote or your estimate. Eventually, we hope to get to the shop drawing level of detail in terms of our level of modeling. But today we're focused on kind of that earlier stage quote, just to make it super clear. So component drawings, layout drawings, where your panels go. And what we hear from companies is, especially when less sophisticated clients get into offsite construction, they actually don't really know what that means. And so being able to provide layout drawings that clearly indicate what's included, what's excluded in a quote, configuration drawings, things like isometrics here, these actually really help inform our less sophisticated clients what your system actually is. So that is essentially Cope in a nutshell. And we'll pause there. And any questions? John, it looks like, and if you do have questions, plug them into the chat, and then John will feed them to me, and I can answer them. Okay, so there's a question around interfaces with Revit model, interfaces and systems. Okay, so the question, I think, as I understand it, Christina, is around how do we interface with Revit? And if I don't answer it directly, please clarify. Feel free to jump on the mic too if you can. And so the idea is with Cope is we're taking at any point in a project lifecycle, we're taking that base model, architectural model, and you can branch it into Cope and reconfigure systems. So think of that as like you can do that 50 times during a project and sort of make sure your bid is still up to date, your panel layouts are still up to date. Anytime you need to reconfigure, redesign, like push it to Cope and reconfigure, it's very quick and easy. In terms of getting the Cope content back to Revit, we generate IFC model content. So you can import that to Revit or ArchiCAD or wherever else, Tekla, whatever else you all are using. And we have the ability as well with Autodesk. We're actually working on functionality with Autodesk's Informed Design team at the moment to sort of partner up with their Inventor to Revit workflow and allow lightweight model content from Cope to go back to the architectural design model and not weigh it down with heavy model elements. But then also internally for each of the manufacturers' products who we're using, have that go back to a very detailed fabrication ready inventor model. So there is a workflow that we're getting developed at the moment, and we're actually going to be talking about at Autodesk University in October about that workflow. So if that's interesting to you, more to come on that very soon in the next coming months. Okay, so let's see. So question is, so Cope's an estimating and optimizing application with AI. It doesn't replace the 3D CAD, but does it replace the 3D CAD that the panel manufacturer uses? So no, we're not. Essentially, we want architect workflows to remain exactly the same as they are. We're not going to change architects' behavior in terms of how they're designing projects. But what this does do is make it easier for offsite manufacturers to actually get their systems sort of configured per the architect. So think of the perfect Cope use case is a manufacturer of a system, and they get quotes in for all sorts of varied projects. Single family homes, custom homes, multifamily, commercial projects. Essentially, every time they see a project, it's a brand new thing, and they need to sort of adapt their system into that brand new boutique project. That's the Cope use case. And so we're using a lot of sort of powerful design logic and automation and generative design algorithms to do that generating work of getting your systems into projects. Okay, next question was, will Cope have the capabilities at some point to take the cassette data and transfer these into shop orders for production? Yes, and as soon as we possibly can, John. That is the idea. We are not there yet, and essentially, there's a we have more to build in the platform to make that work. But today, it's sort of giving you the ability to sort of generate quotes and system configurations for that early stage first, and then use that as a starting point for your design and engineering. So what we hear from companies is, as a starting point, as the base of their design and engineering, you can start with the Cope generated output, and then put that into your, whatever your process is for actually generating fabrication level modeling, engineering, detailing. But the Cope generated content can help streamline that process of getting those fabrication level models set up. So yes to some degree, and we're hoping to go deeper into that in the future. Okay, and then a question around Cope licenses. So we've got multiple licenses types listed on the website. Our general license is what we call our Pro license, and that includes access to the Cope Configurator for anyone in your company. So we're not doing seat-based licensing. So it's more of an enterprise or a company-wide license that anyone in your company can use. So no configuration limits, no data limits, no seat limits. And the Pro license, you can see on the website, in the UK is £2,500 a month, and in the US it's $3,000 a month, which is essentially the same when you do the conversion. Okay, next question was, what is your commercial model for prefab manufacturers? Okay, so yeah, Mark, that's the Pro license. The enterprise license, to go back to the prior question, is really if you're starting to think about lots of different systems configured into one building, that's when we start talking enterprise license. So instead of you having multiple Pro licenses for different systems that you might configure, we would just bundle that sort of on an as needed basis into one enterprise license for your company versus a couple of Pro licenses. And then do we white label the platform? Potentially, and we'd have to explore more about the details there. Question is, have you had any experiences of using CAD work and Cope together? I've had a lot of conversations around that. And again, sort of the workflow that makes a lot of sense is Cope for your coding, and then CAD work for your fabrication level detailing and modeling. And so Cope output as an input to CAD work makes a ton of sense. And again, we're using a very interchangeable format with IFC. So you can leverage that Cope generated system layout and then take it from there and go detail it. Okay, another question is, Will we be able to provide generic benchmark data aligned to industry standards or indexes for things like install times, carbon content, based on info that's modeled? So the answer is absolutely the platform could do all these things. Right now, we're taking the approach of manufacturer by manufacturer. What are those criteria that are important for them to be able to configure their systems? So in the cases of cost, we can absolutely bake costs into the platform, and then you can optimize around low cost. So that could be something you optioneer around. It also could be things like carbon content. Install times would be interesting. We haven't run across that yet, but we'd love to have that chat around how we could make the platform accommodate those things. What we typically see is every company in offsite construction has a homegrown quoting and estimating process. Like everybody essentially started these offsite businesses as something brand new. There's no sort of industry standard on like best practices for offsite manufacturing and construction. I think we're getting there as an industry, but for now, what we generally see is every prefab operation is kind of a unique thing that has unique processes around quoting and configuring and pricing their systems. And so what we're trying to do, what we think is most universally applicable at this point in time, is if we provide the raw data on panel takeoffs and system takeoffs and the counts of various components, then everyone's got their own unique way to like add margin and markup for the various components in their own custom processes. But I do think we're going to see some sort of standardization emerging in the industry in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of sort of what are best practices. And we've got a whole host of design consultants, industrialized construction consultants who are helping us get there, lean manufacturing principles and all that. But today it's really, we think we can add the most value if we just give you the takeoff data and have people plug it into their own process. Okay, who can we contact to explore how to implement Cope? Any of us would love to chat. Amber, who's on this call, will be reaching out, can reach out as well, and we can set up a conversation and talk about a particular use case. Absolutely. We are selling Cope globally at this point to offsite manufacturers. So yeah, if you're interested, absolutely reach out, and we're more than happy to chat. Okay, I think we're at time almost. I think we answered our questions, the questions you all have posted. Any last questions? And if not, please do reach out. We'd happy to have a one-off conversation and learn more about your system and talk on more specifics. So yeah, thanks for your time, everyone. Appreciate you all taking a half an hour out of your day. And we will send you a recording of this and can follow up. So if you wanted to pass this to anyone else in your organizations, by all means, please do. And we will hopefully talk to each of you soon. Thanks.